so much. And I just want to echo what Congressman Bell was just saying. You know, there seems to be a theme. Republicans love to talk about how they are looking out for our children and they are trying to do what's best for them, yet we still haven't seen any adequate gun legislation to protect them while they're in these schools. And now that we're dealing with their education, we're talking about $30 million being set aside, and right now we have approximately 1,400 students that take advantage of being able to kind of go into the private school situation for OSP. So that amounts to approximately $21,000 per student that is going to a private school.
Republicans say they care about children. But when it comes to real action, whether on gun safety or education, their policies tell a very different story. This week, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett put that hypocrisy on full display. With the numbers laid bare, $21,000 for private school students, just $192 for public school students, Democrats are calling out a system that rewards privilege while leaving millions of children behind. Tonight, we take a closer look.
Thank you so much. And I just want to echo what Congressman Bell was just saying. You know, there seems to be a theme. Republicans love to talk about how they are looking out for our children and they are trying to do what's best for them, yet we still haven't seen any adequate gun legislation to protect them while they're in these schools. And now that we're dealing with their education, we're talking about $30 million being set aside, and right now we have approximately 1,400 students that take advantage of being able to kind of go into the private school situation for OSP. So that amounts to approximately $21,000 per student that is going to a private school. But if we look at the 52,000 students that are in the public school, then we're talking about approximately $192 per student. And then we start to talk about charter. Now, do y'all think charter is getting less or more? Since charter is somewhere between private and public, you guessed it right. When it comes to the charter students, then they are giving charter students $425 approximately per student. How is that equitable? I mean, I know that y'all hate the idea of the word diversity and you don't like equity and you don't like inclusion, but gosh darn it, we're talking about kids. And the idea that when someone goes to a public school, they can't be turned away. They have to take that student. But when it comes to the private schools, they can absolutely cherry pick and decide who it is that they want to take and who it is they don't want to take. And somehow, if you end up being one of the prize students that they want to take, maybe because you lack diversity, then you'll get access to $21,000. But if you are a student who is just as capable, if not more than capable, somehow you'll only have access to approximately $192 for your public education. The public education that the people at least have some accountability over because they have the ability to elect who's going to sit on school boards and things like that, unlike at the private schools and unlike what we look at the charters. And for some reason, we complain about waste, fraud, and abuse, especially in this committee. And you're telling me that you believe that the American people are going to say, yes, send our tax dollars off to those private schools. The private schools that most likely this administration has some cronies that actually own, that they're going to profit from. There is a theme in this Congress. It is do everything that we can to line the pockets of the already rich and make sure that those that are struggling and need resources the most are going to be the ones that are sitting there holding the bag, being told to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and when they don't, you blame them. I'll yield.
Gentlelady yields. Yeah. I was just saying, I went to public school, so I don't know what you're talking about on the private school stuff. But.
I did public too.
Okay. I thought you went to private school.
I went to both.
Oh, okay.
How about that?
All right. We didn't have private schools where I came from.
She was
and my mama paid for
St.
it.
Louis, so let's hold that down.
Chair.
History shows us where this leads. Voucher programs began as a way to resist integration after Brown v. Board of Education. Wealthy families fled public schools, taking tax dollars with them, and left underfunded schools behind for Black and working-class children. Today, Republicans are dressing up those same inequities in new language, but the outcome is the same: systemic inequality. And Democrats like Jasmine Crockett are determined to call it out. It's not just a matter of money, it's a matter of democracy itself. Public schools are one of the last truly democratic institutions in America. They are the places where children of all backgrounds come together, learn together, and grow together. When Republicans undermine public schools, they're undermining the very fabric of our democracy. They're saying some children deserve opportunity and others do not. This is why Democrats continue to fight for policies like universal pre-K, increased teacher pay, mental health support in schools, and yes, stricter gun safety laws. Because it's not enough to say we value children. We have to prove it in policy. We have to back up those words with resources, with protections, with the full weight of government commitment. Jasmine Crockett's moment in that hearing was more than just a soundbite. It was a crystallization of what's at stake. When she said Republicans were giving $21,000 to private school students while starving public school students with $192, she was holding up a mirror to America. And what we see in that reflection is uncomfortable. It's a system rigged against the many and tilted toward the few. But here's the truth: it doesn't have to be this way. With leadership like Crockett's, with Democrats united in their vision for equity, we can rebuild a system that works for all children. We can invest in our public schools. We can pass common-sense gun safety laws. And we can ensure that the next generation has the tools they need to thrive. That's the choice before us. Do we continue down the path of Republican hypocrisy, or do we stand with Democrats who are fighting for every child's future? To the viewers here tonight, let's be honest. This fight isn't abstract. It affects you. It affects your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors. And that's why your voice matters. That's why your vote matters. And that's why your engagement matters. Because when Democrats like Jasmine Crockett stand up in Congress, they are standing up for you. They are standing up for fairness, for justice, for equity. So let's be clear. Republicans had their chance. They've chosen tax breaks for the wealthy, privatization schemes for education, and obstruction on gun safety. Democrats are offering something different. Democrats are offering a future where every child, not just the privileged few, gets a fair shot. And that's why it's so important that we keep paying attention, keep pushing, and keep fighting. Jasmine Crockett has shown us what bold leadership looks like. Now it's up to us to match that energy. So if you're watching this, do your part. Like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Tell us what you think about this disparity. Tell us why you believe in defending public education. Because together, we can amplify the voices that matter. Together, we can push back against hypocrisy. And together, we can build the kind of country our children deserve. This isn't just about $21,000 versus $192. It's about values, it's about priorities, and it's about the future of America. Democrats are clear. Every child deserves a fair shot. And with leaders like Jasmine Crockett, we're going to make sure they get it. The House hearing room was tense but electric. Cameras lined the walls, reporters filled the seats, and at the center of it all stood a young Democrat who has quickly become one of the fiercest voices in Congress, Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas. What unfolded that day was more than a simple exchange about school budgets. It was a moral showdown, one that laid bare the deep inequities in America's education system and the Republican Party's blatant hypocrisy when it comes to our children. Congressman Sanford Bishop of Georgia had already framed the debate. He pointed out that Republican policies, particularly voucher programs and tax credits, were funneling massive amounts of taxpayer money into private schools, schools that don't have to accept every child, that can expel students at will, and that often charge tuition far beyond what working-class families can afford. Bishop put the numbers into context, but it was Jasmine Crockett who seized the moment and delivered the knockout blow. With her characteristic clarity and fire, Crockett broke it down. Private school students are getting about $21,000 each. Charter school students are getting about $425, and our public school students, who make up the majority, are receiving only $192. The silence in the room was deafening. For all the Republican talk about supporting families, defending children, and expanding opportunity, the math told a very different story. Think about that for a moment. $21,000 per student in private schools, $192 for the vast majority of American children who attend public schools. It's not just inequity, it's injustice. And Jasmine Crockett called it exactly what it is, a betrayal of the children Republicans claim to protect. And Crockett didn't stop there. She drew the connection between Republican failures on education and their failures on safety. They love to talk about how much they care about our kids, she said, but where's the gun legislation? Where's the protection for those same kids when they're in the classrooms we're starving of resources? That's the hypocrisy at the heart of the GOP agenda. They claim the mantle of family values, yet their policies consistently undermine the very institutions families rely on. They demand prayers in schools, but refuse to fund those schools. They speak of freedom, but only for the wealthy who can afford to send their kids to elite academies, while working families are left with crumbling classrooms, outdated textbooks, and teachers stretched to the breaking point. Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to dismiss Crockett's argument, suggesting Democrats are simply playing politics. But Crockett had the facts, and facts have a way of cutting through the noise. Private schools can pick and choose their students. Public schools cannot. Private schools can close their doors to children with disabilities, to children who need extra resources, to children who come from immigrant families. Public schools do not have that luxury. They open their doors to every child, and then they're told to make do with scraps. That's not freedom. That's systemic abandonment. What makes Crockett's confrontation so powerful is that she's speaking for millions of families across this country who see it every day. Parents who drop their kids off at schools where the ceiling tiles are falling, where there aren't enough counselors to deal with trauma, where teachers have to dig into their own pockets to buy supplies. These parents don't see $21,000 in funding. They see $192, and a government that tells them their children's education matters less than someone else's privilege. Democrats are clear about where they stand. They believe every child, no matter their zip code, deserves access to a quality public education. They believe in strengthening public schools, not siphoning resources away from them. They believe in gun safety laws that actually protect children in classrooms, not empty thoughts and prayers. And they believe in equity, in making sure the system works not just for the wealthy few, but for the many. Republicans, on the other hand, have made their strategy plain. For decades, they've pushed privatization schemes under the banner of school choice. But what they're really doing is draining public schools of the resources they need to survive, creating a two-tiered system where the wealthy are subsidized and the rest are left behind. It's the same playbook they use with healthcare, with taxes, with nearly every policy arena. Take care of those at the top and let everyone else fend for themselves.